If you open the CAF website, these words come out. Take on challenges without fear of failure. It's almost a cliche, without fear of failure. But failure is scary, for sure. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. This is about the famous Stockdale paradox. During the Vietnam War, General Stockdale was the highest ranking officer among US POWs, so he stayed alone in a very small room in solitary confinement for 8 years. During those 8 years, a lot of people, including much younger soldiers, died because they couldn't endure it. But others who remained, who believed that the war would be almost infinite, in other words, the most pessimistic, survived. But if they were really pessimistic, they would have just died. But instead, they faced the reality that the war will end someday, but that day could come much later than expected. And they created their daily routines, even in prison. Others who died thought it was a temporary place to be and they would get to go next time. But in this very extreme situation, General Stockdale made it a routine and endured it. And he was finally released from captivity. So it shows that it can be very dangerous to underestimate so many things in our daily routines. Entrepreneurship in Korea, I shouldn't say it's interesting, but there are many things to think about. Starting a company in Korea is sometimes portrayed as very romantic and pioneering the future, but in fact, in Korea, the 5-year startup survival rate does not reach the OECD average, and most of the startups are for livelihood. The average share of livelihood startups among OECD members is 26%, but we stand at 63%. There's been an investment frenzy over the past 2 years, but it's getting really difficult these days. Starting a business will fail many times, of course. So it's a very difficult process. So if you go into this difficult process thinking it will be easy, you will be frustrated. Professor Ho Jun-hee said this in his Seoul National University commencement speech. We often tell people not to be afraid, take risks, and follow your dreams. This is all good advice, but what we face in reality is this very blunt, zero-sum, comparative evaluation, and after all, only a few actually succeed. That's the reality. That makes me think. We tend to believe ourselves and follow our dream, but neither is the right thing to do. First, you yourself are the last person you should trust because we're so changeable that you are sure something was wrong in the past, but now it seems right and vice versa. You must all have this kind of experience. So I think we should be the most alert about ourselves and also be very careful about the phrase, follow your dream. I only lived for 50 years now, and it would be quite arrogant for me to say that I know what I want. Knowing what you want is a process that takes a lifetime. So I know what I want, so just go for it kind of thinking could be risky. So I say don't believe yourself, but believe in yourself. Know, based on your experience, what kind of person you are, and know that there is possibility for change, and also acknowledge your limitations. And that's what you can believe. I love running, but no matter how healthy I keep myself, I cannot shorten my time by just 10 seconds. That's just who I am. I mean, excellence, in the words of Aristotle, comes from your everyday routine. What you do in your everyday routine and nothing beyond that. For example, I could be very smart and have this amazing lab, but I can never publish 10, 20 papers in Nature or Science overnight. So I can only do what I can do now, and what you should believe is not your changeable dreams or hope, but you yourself, your real present self, that I can run 1.6 kilometers in a certain amount of time at least. That's the only thing that I can believe. There are many reasons to be afraid of failure. First, failure is a result of choice. And you are responsible for the choice. And important failure means that you put much thinking into making that choice. Any choice becomes binary in the end. There seems to be many options, but after all, it's a matter of to do or not to do, whether to pursue postgraduate education or to get a job, whether to get married or not, whether to marry this guy or that guy, and so on. And you want to make the right choice between these two binary options. Something is very important here. Making a reasonable choice often involves a cost-benefit analysis. Of course, B should be greater than C, and we are smart enough to calculate the benefits and costs entailed by a particular choice. The benefits and costs, we're very smart about those. But a big problem is that our estimation of P here is extremely inaccurate. You can be certain about B and C, but if P is inaccurate, then you're screwed. I didn't actually put P to C here, but there is in fact P. And when you're making a really important choice, C should be regarded as a probability 1 event. Any choice has a benefit, that's kind of a given probability. But when it comes to bearing the cost, the probability is 1. Of course, when making choices B, C, and P are all important, but the most important choices depend very heavily on C alone. The cost is there 100%. If you cannot bear the cost, you shouldn't make that choice. If you can, should, and will bear the cost, then you can make the choice and never regret. Well, never say never, but anyway. So maybe choices that we make in spite of something are the ones that we regret the least. This is one of the failure cases that I really like. Diana Nyad was over 60 when she got into long-distance swimming. Her goal was to swim from Florida to Cuba, which is about 180 kilometers. So she prepared and tried and failed on the first, second, third, and fourth attempts, and finally succeeded on the fifth attempt. Those 4 failed attempts, she did not just swim the first 10 kilometers and quit. She almost finished but couldn't. They were all so close. I think that's very meaningful because you can't force yourself to do the impossible. You can't just think that, oh, if I swim 2 more hours, I can reach the shore, but those 2 hours may kill you. It's dangerous. So you need to be able to stop when you should, even if you're close to your goal. And stopping takes confidence that you can always do it again, but you don't do it again because it's easy. According to sports science, in long-distance race, not only physical, but mental strength matters enormously. It is so physically challenging that people in their 50s actually stand a better chance than those in their 20s, apparently. So my point is, when you fail, it's so hard to let go of all the efforts you put in, and that's when you start to overstretch. But you shouldn't do that. You need to know when to stop. Second case is about Eliud Kipchoge, who I really admire. He has run 18 marathons, for 16 of which he holds the world record. He's one of the most record-breaking athletes in the world. In 2017, he participated in a challenge called Breaking 2, sponsored by Nike. The aim was to find out the time taken for a human to run 42.195 kilometers under ideal conditions. It was very controversial, and it wasn't even an official record because to provide ideal air resistance and everything, they would make arrangements and surround the runner, Kipchoge, to block the wind. So the sport community said it was not fair, it's cheating, and the record can never be official. I think they're right too, but I also think that It shows how great Kipchoge is because he knew it would be controversial, but nevertheless, he went for it to try and find out human possibility and limitation. And he ran a marathon late last September in Berlin and set an official record this time by shortening the time by 30 seconds without any intervention. So he broke the world record, which will be hard to break in the near future. But I don't admire him because of all these achievements. He's now living in a small village in Kenya, training on his own. I watch his interviews religiously, and in one of my favorite interviews, he says that he runs not to break the world record, but to see how better he can run compared to the last time. The result could be a new world record, which is good. But he says his goal is not to break the record, but to renew his personal best, whether or not he wins a gold medal. So I really like that interview. So in conclusion, I often think to myself, thank God I didn't succeed, because many things that make me actually come from not succeeding. But then you can only understand if you have tried hard enough before failing, only when you have pushed yourself to the extreme. I know I'm being a little paradoxical here by saying you should try very, very hard to fail properly, and also saying that you need to be able to stop. I think that's because many people in Korea, myself included, receive career education, but no one teaches us how to exit our career path, what to do when it's time to come down from the top. Park Chan-ho, the famous baseball player, once said that when he was coming down from the top, nobody taught him how to fall properly. So to repeat, what makes me today is those countless failures from the past. So we have to live long because we have yet to achieve so many things. And that process should be a little uncomfortable, a little difficult, but not too much so that it's sustainable. After all, it's about how to make a choice and not regret, and how to fail properly. Now, my answer is I only lived 50 years, so I'm not sure, but I can say at this point that there is no such thing as non-regrettable choice or proper failure. You just make a choice and work to make it right. You fail and you work to make the failure right. Because looking back, there was once a time when I thought I had done everything wrong in my life. But the important thing is the ability to reconstruct the past, how to interpret the meaning of your failures and reconstruct your experience of failure. That will make a big difference to your life, to the experience of your life. That wraps up my talk. Thank you.